Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Underneath the Hood. I'm Dave Martin, the owner of Martin's Auto Repair in Central Phoenix.
I'm Glen Hayward, the proud owner of Good Works Auto Repair in sunny Tempe, Arizona.
And I'm Lee Weatherby with Accurate Automotive in the heart of Mesa.
And together, we represent 140 years of combined automotive experience.
Our goal is to change the perception of our auto repair industry by going behind the scenes and underneath the hood.
And we hope to share with you what it's like to own a small business and give you a perspective from an insider's point of view.
Well, let's get started. Hey, good morning, Lee. Good morning, Glenn. How you doing?
Morning, Dave. We're doing fantastic.
Morning, Dave. Super great.
Super great. Hey, you know what? On this podcast, guess what we're going to talk about? We're going to talk about parts.
Parts is parts.
Parts is parts. Vital to what we do.
Yeah.
Is that like pieces parts? Or?
And and unfortunately, parts can be a little bit of a challenge,
Absolutely.
as you know, because the cars and the models, they change so much now. Remember back in the 70s, and I know you guys are really old too. And
Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Dave. I
Thanks
resemble
for,
that remark.
thanks for that affirmation. I feel much better
I'm just
now.
I just want to be part of the crowd. I don't want to stand out of
You
nothing.
just want to fit in.
Yeah, I want to fit in.
Especially because I'm the oldest of all of you.
Yeah, I
Oh,
know.
there you go.
I know. You kind of look the oldest too, but
Thank
that's
you. I
just
appreciate
another
it.
thing.
I was going to say you might look the best. I mean, you look pretty good, Glenn.
Lee, suck up.
So,
There we go.
so auto parts.
So auto parts. So, I was just going to say, back in the 70s and 80s, do you remember we could buy a part that would fit probably 20 to maybe 30 different cars?
Oh, absolutely.
And now it's you got to have, when was it manufactured?
Yeah.
The middle of the year? Could it be in June, or could it be in
July?
August or whatever?
Absolutely.
And there's a cutoff. So parts have become way more of a challenge for us. The VIN numbers are so important, right, guys?
That's everything, because that's one of the first things they ask you if you're on the call with a dealership or something like that. They want the last 8 of the VIN. Sometimes they want the whole VIN. And to add a little bit to your point there, Dave, some cars have the same model with 3 different engines in it. You
Yeah,
can have a
absolutely.
6-cylinder, 4-cylinder, or 4-cylinder turbo, or it can have twin turbos, or it can have a supercharger. That there are, and that all varies in the parts that go on that engine and in that transmission.
No question about it. And just like everything we do, I mean, sometimes they even go a little step further and say, hey, can you give me the production date? Just to your point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now I need the production date. And then they also want to understand 2-wheel, 4-wheel, you know what I mean? What type of application,
Exactly.
you know what I mean, is being utilized. And
Yeah.
so
And-
it's really essential so we can get the right parts, because to your point, they're trying to make them unique and specific. And sometimes it's a little bit of sensory overload, because we're like, wow. And even when we do all that, guys, and unfortunately, this is one of the things we experience, they still don't always get the parts right.
Right. And one thing that has gotten a little bit easier is the technology has made it a little easier for us, because
Absolutely.
you can, like, the technician will come in there and say, hey, I need this part. And, we used to order it and get, 2 or 3 parts and find out that they were all wrong and have to go back to the drawing board and figure it out. Right.
Yeah.
Well, now sometimes and I'm sure you guys do the same thing we do, our service writer will say, hey, tech, come inside here and look at this on the screen.
Mhm.
Tell me if this is the part.
You bet.
So it makes it a little bit better for us to be able to know, to get the part right the first time.
You bet. We're trying to streamline the process, because it is the customer on the other end that we're trying to serve, but at the same token, it really, really is essential that we cut the time that is necessary for us to go through the process. You know what I mean? Ordering the part, getting the part. And the more honed in we can be, such as, i.e. utilizing all the people that are around us to make sure that we're getting the proper one, that just makes all the difference in the world.
And we didn't even talk about this yet, but what about quality, Lee?
Oh,
I was going to go down that road.
Yeah.
Take it away.
Let me give a quick example. A guy came over with his Dodge pickup truck,
Yeah.
and we did a diagnostic on the thing and needed O2 sensors. Well, I just replaced those. I said, where'd you buy them? He said, Amazon. He says, they're much cheaper than any of the auto parts stores. I said, well, cheap is cheap. I says, and now you're going to have to put 4 new oxygen sensors on there, and chances are you're not going to be able to return these, because
Yeah.
it's been used, burned, it can't be resold, reboxed.
Right.
And this guy was very frustrated, but on the same hand, he says, yeah, I priced them at all the different auto parts stores and everything. And there's different qualities of oxygen sensors.
Oh, there's no
When
question.
I say O2 for the audience out there, they're oxygen sensors which monitor the exhaust in your vehicle. So there's front and rear in front of the catalytic converter and behind the catalytic converter that are monitoring to make sure that your engine is running efficiently and not contaminating the air.
Absolutely. Well, the interesting thing, and to your point, Glenn, the quality of the component, Dave, that you utilize in your vehicle will make all the difference on how the vehicle responds, runs, the longevity. All these things are really big factors when we're going about getting parts. Now, sometimes, and let's face it, we all do the same thing. We want to get the best deal. All right. We want the deal. And we want to do that for our customers. And I've known you guys for years. You guys are doing the same thing. We're fighting for our people.
Absolutely.
At the same token, we have an awareness or an understanding, because we've been burned, much like this gentleman, where price shouldn't always be the primary factor. There's more research that needs to be done about the quality, about the responsiveness, about the longevity, about how well that part is going to respond in its proper application. Because just to what Dave was talking about at the very beginning, we have specific and unique components, that have to fit this parameter and that parameter and this parameter. And then we go and say, I want this cheap thing over here. Can you sell me this for $10?
Right.
Well, and another thing too is we ran into a situation where a particular part where they made it for the specific vehicle and it worked really well. Well, what they did was they expanded upon it and they wanted to make it for more makes and more models. But the problem is that particular part didn't work in certain models.
You bet.
Because of the way they designed it and the way they remanufactured it. The quality of that part means so much. And you guys are in the same boat that I am. The last thing in the world you want to do is get that phone call that we just worked on your car 6 months ago, and now they're broken down somewhere.
Absolutely.
And guess what? It's the part that we put in the car failed.
Right.
And that's embarrassing. We don't want to do that. We want to make sure
embarrassing.
that the part we're putting in your car is going to give you the most cost-effective miles possible out of your vehicle, and that part lasts for a long period of time, and you don't get broken down.
That's correct. And that's how we learn. You know what I mean? Because we see that, look, we used a quality component, sometimes even a brand name that we've been very reliant on for maybe several periods of time, years, in fact. And all of a sudden, something will change within the brand, and we now know, oh my, we may not be able to utilize that product only because it had a bad run or it had a bad batch, or maybe they cut something out of it that was absolutely essential for it to, do its
I'll
job.
expand on that for just a second, because the names that we've grown up to know and trust in this industry have sold out to other manufacturing locations around the world.
You bet.
You rarely ever see a part that says made in USA anymore. They're made in the Far East, they're made in Mexico, they're made in South America, they're made in different parts of Europe. And I think that as these companies buy out other companies, I think the quality control kind of goes to the dogs.
Yeah.
And sometimes they, try to do things to cut corners and make a part a little bit less expensive. At the end of the day, we as purchasers of parts for our clients, we have to trust our better senses, I guess, and what the experiences that we've had with a particular brand or a particular part. And that takes a lot of, accumulation of knowledge over a period of time, because sometimes a part, like Lee was saying, that you knew and trusted isn't a trustworthy part anymore.
Well, see, and a lot of that is learned. Listen, I mean, let's go back to the research. Guys, we're doing research all the time. We're attending classes. We're going to some of these vendor product shows, and we're trying to
Talking
learn.
to the reps.
Absolutely.
We want to know what's going on in the
Bingo.
field. And
Bingo.
when these reps come by, I always tell them, look, if you're having a problem with a particular run or a particular part, just let us know.
Absolutely.
Just all you need to do is let us know.
Absolutely.
Don't lie to us, because we're all friends and
Yeah.
we all know each other. And believe me, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to call one of you guys and go, hey, you having this problem with this part? And you're going to tell me, yeah, we're having the same problem.
Absolutely.
So don't lie to me. Just tell me the truth.
Yeah.
And let's make sure that we're all on the same page, so we don't have to go through the pain
You
of
bet.
having to deal with a part that doesn't belong in that car.
And thank heavens for that network. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's the beautiful thing, is we can do that with one another. You know what I mean? Some people don't have that same luxury. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're very fortunate in that regard. But at the same token, just to your point, we need to be able to, and we do have that relationship
Right.
with our reps, where we can say, hey, listen, you need to give us the skinny, give us the lowdown.
Yeah.
Tell us, is this a bad run or whatever? Because, hey, listen, we understand, you know what I mean? We're not perfect. We understand that they're not always perfect, but
Things happen.
Things happen.
And
And when they do, we need to make sure that we're providing that opportunity, you know what I mean, to be able to avoid utilizing that product, you know, for a period until maybe it corrects itself or whatever occurs, and then be able to move off onto another product.
Yeah, and the last thing I want to say is the liability factor. Their car breaks down. There's somewhere something catastrophic happened because of a parts failure, and who's the person they come back to? They don't go back to the parts manufacturer. They don't go back to the parts vendor. They go back to us.
Right.
And we have to take all that heat and responsibility to whatever degree that we feel we need to or are, you know, obligated to do. And that's a tough call because ultimately they've just taken all of our profit out of a job. We have to do it all over again. Yeah, we get a free part, but no one's reimbursing us for the labor.
Time lost, everything else.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the crazy part. Doing a job twice and the second time is free doesn't make it profitable.
No, and the interesting thing, I'm going to go back to your point that you made a little bit earlier about, you know, unfortunate this gentleman bought these parts on Amazon. Well, now who's he going to go back to? You see what I mean? Because unfortunately, if we're the ones that actually installed them, you know what I mean? They still look at us, even though we didn't produce them.
They think you did something wrong.
Correct.
They think it's
correct.
Or you
it's
did
the question
that you put on something that didn't fix the problem when in fact it was a failure of the part itself.
right.
and that's the problem.
And here's the thing.
And we keep smiling.
Yeah. Well, the thing of it is, that's because we want to serve our clients. You know what I mean?
Yes,
That's because we
absolutely.
really actually care.
Right. And people think when they come into my shop, of course, we don't install customers' parts.
We don't either.
We just quit
Just for
doing
that
it.
reason.
We just, well, and you know why? It always ends badly. It always ends badly because here's what happens is,
Well, Dave, I tell people this: we're friends now.
yeah, right.
And you know what?
Yeah.
But we're not going to be if I install that because unfortunately, if you know something
Right,
goes
you're gonna
awry,
be-
who are you going to look
I'm,
at?
I'm going to be in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Or no, the customer's going to be in the middle of it. And that's the
Absolutely.
worst part. So
Absolutely.
your client's going to be in the middle of this thing and it's not going to end well because what happens is number one, they usually give 9 out of 10 times they get the wrong part. And, and you got the wrong part. So you got this car, you torn down in your rack, and you find out you got the wrong part. Now you got to call the customer, and now we got a fire sale going on. Now the customer's got to go get the other part because they're the ones that dealt with it, and they handle it, and they're in the middle of it. Now you got a car broken down in your rack all day, which really messes up your business
Absolutely.
and hurts your business.
You bet.
And so then also the parts store will say, well, they didn't install it right, or they will say that, and we'll say, no, it's just a defective part. So now the customer's in the middle of it and going back and forth. You and I, we don't have that problem. You guys, we don't have that problem because we have the reliable parts stores that we deal with, and they trust us and we trust them.
Correct.
So when we have a problem, we work together to solve the problem. We don't point fingers at each other.
You bet.
Know what I mean?
And
it's all the difference.
It's all about the relationships that you're talking about.
Yep.
It's the same thing we do on the customer side. You know, listen, our customers are our friends. We absolutely adore and appreciate them. But the key to it is we also are their greatest advocate. You know what I mean? And that's really something that is quite an honor to be able to do that. The key to it is sometimes we have to educate. See, the biggest part of what we're trying to do, and even especially when it comes to parts, is educate to make sure that, you know, we understand there is a reason why this component is a better choice than this one, even though this one has what we're going to call a better price. But this component is going to respond and perform better versus the one that, you know, might have a cost related issue with it.
Yeah, we want to buy stuff that outlives our warranty.
Absolutely.
It has to.
And when you bring in your own parts, you're diagnosing your own car.
Oh, yeah.
And
No.
I'm going to tell you guys a quick story that changed my whole perspective on installing customers' parts. I had a elderly gentleman come into my shop, and he held up this part in his hand, and he said, "How much to install this part?" And I said, "Well, how do you know it's bad?" He goes, "Well, I've been around a lot longer than you have, and I think I know more than you do." I said,
Oh,
okay.
nice. There's the door.
There you go.
So,
You install it.
it was one of the best lessons I've ever learned because I thought, okay, you know more than me, I'll install the part. This was years ago when I wasn't as smart as I am now, which I'm not that much smarter. But anyway, that's a whole other story.
You're a
We got
genius.
time for that podcast.
You're a
but anyway,
genius. Get
but
out
but
of here.
so I installed the part, and about 5 minutes after he left my shop, he goes, "Hey, my check engine light came back on." And I said, "Yeah, you diagnosed it. I didn't." You know what he said to me? He said, "Well, you're the professional. I'm not." So you know what? That was right there was the biggest aha moment for me. Was I go, he's 100% right. I'm an idiot. I should have known I'm the professional, and I should have stopped him from doing something that wasn't very smart.
And Dave, you know what? Thank you for sharing that story because that is absolutely the essence and the truth and the foundation really for why it is that we should never, you know what I mean, take in a part from someone. Because in that case, listen, we're all, people are creatures of habit, most of us. And what happens is we want to utilize every, little thing that we can to our advantage if it's possible. And in that case, of course, he knew more than you.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is, we have to go through a diagnostic process in order to make sure. Otherwise, we're just like waiters. You know what I mean? And listen, I understand, but it's a completely different business. You see what I mean? Waiter serves a very vital role, but we can't afford to be waiters in our automotive repair shops, because if we are, now we're taking orders from the client, assuming that they know what they're talking about. And in essence, they're looking at us as the professionals.
You mentioned waiters, and it's kind of funny because a really good waiter will save you from from getting some food that you don't want.
Amen.
The waiter will say to you, like, "Do you like spicy?" I'm like, "No, I hate spicy." And I hate anything burning going in or coming out.
I love
it. So the waiter will say to me, "Yeah, it's probably not a good choice for you."
Good.
And that's a smart waiter. And you used the word advocate earlier.
Yes.
And really, that's what our job is
You
to
bet.
be an advocate.
You bet.
And help our customers. And there's things that we don't know. There's other things that are not in our wheelhouse.
Amen.
That we have to rely on other people to kind of help us, guide us through it, so we don't make a bunch of stupid mistakes.
Right. I agree wholeheartedly, and that's why we use our network.
Yeah. It's a buyer beware world out there, and if you're not a professional and you don't know anything about something, and you go to the auto parts store and they plug your car in and they tell you, "Hey, you need this part," they really haven't done anything. They've read codes, and then they give you this ticker tape with about 10 parts listed on there that could possibly fix the problem. And then they get them all in a box and they set them on the counter and say, "Here, this will take care of it." And then the other side of that is, do you have the knowledge and the ability to be able to dismantle your vehicle, put those parts on, and put it all back together the same way as it came apart? And then if you bought a low quality part, and the light comes back on or whatever, or it didn't fix the problem at all because they
5
sold
minutes
you
later.
they sold you
They
sold you 5 parts, and none of them were going to fix the problem.
Correct.
Because it may not be a sensor, it might be a cog or something on the inside. We have a lot of variable cam timing now, and every car's got it.
Yeah.
And so they got solenoids, and those solenoids are controlling the cams and their position in there. Sometimes the sensor goes bad, sometimes the phaser goes bad.
But see, to your point though, and the thing that I loved about this, Glenn, is you had somebody that went in and had the perception because somebody grabbed a tool. You see what I mean? They grabbed a tool and they plugged it in. In other words, they were using a mechanic's tool, but was there a mechanic behind the tool? Because the tool is only as good as the person being able to utilize it. And we all know that.
Knowledge.
Right.
All right. But here's the thing. And so anybody, if it was as easy as you just plug it in, you know what I mean, then it tells you what's wrong. Man, everybody would be in
I'd
this
buy that
business.
tool.
Yeah.
I'd buy that tool.
Man,
I'd pay $10,000 for that
Just
tool.
because you have a toolbox doesn't mean you can fix a car.
Well,
I
no.
totally get it.
And that's the point. But what happens is then, and I've got one of those stories like you're talking about, and we all do, but guy comes in, and here's the interesting point, because it makes a lot of the things that you've been saying. And that is, guy comes in and he says, "Hey, listen, okay, I've been to, such and such a place, and they checked this out and they sold me this part. Didn't fix it. So I went back and they sold me this part. And then I went back and then they sold me this part. And I'm just so frustrated, because I've got several $100s into these things and my car's still not fixed." And I said to him, I said, "Well, who was the mechanic, you know what I mean, that was doing all this evaluation and diagnosis?" And he says,
probably him.
The key to it was people want to believe that it's that easy. You know what I mean? And we all do. All right. But the key is, once again, back to that process. There's an evaluation that has to occur. There's a diagnosis that has to occur. Those things, in most cases, will cost money. You know what I mean? Because it's the hardest part of the job that we do. Yep. And then picking, when we get down to picking the part, it is so essential for all of us. And we take it seriously. I guess that's the thing. Yeah. We take it seriously in making sure that we are the advocate that we need to be, so that when we utilize it, the car doesn't come back in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 months,
6 months,
you know what
whatever.
I mean?
Yeah.
And that, to your point, Glenn, it outlasts the warranty, you know what I mean, that we profess and have. Because what we're really trying to do, all right, is allow convenience, easy, nice driving. Enjoy your vehicle.
So
That's what we
to wrap
want.
this up, let's talk about price costs
Yeah.
on parts, because
Ooh,
they have been elevated by at least 50% in the last year, and
absolutely.
probably another 40% the year before. And, obviously, as an automotive repair shop, we do get a discount from our vendors, but we're not buying it at their cost, because everyone in that food chain has got to make a profit, right?
Right.
And so the manufacturer's got to make a profit, and then the shipping company that ships it to our shores gets a cut of that, and then the next cut goes to the warehouse that warehouses the parts, and the next one goes to the next trucking company or whatever that moves those parts all over the country, and it goes up and up and up. So a $5 part could end up being $60.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. And so, people are just shocked. Well, I could buy this part. And that's always the argument, as we started off saying, well, I can buy that part over at,
Amazon or
XYZ
whatever. Yeah,
or
whatever, yeah.
Amazon or one of the popular parts places.
And in most cases, I mean, not to interrupt, but in most cases, they can't. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, and then
Because they're not comparing apples to apples.
and then
That's correct.
and then the salespeople.
Yeah.
I mean, we have salespeople who come in. They get a portion. I mean, they all get a part of a markup. That's how they make their living.
Mm-hmm.
And for the customers who are out there, for the listening audience, so does the shop that installs your part and diagnoses it. We have the final word. I mean, that's the whole deal. Is we have the final word on what's going to go into your vehicle. Please allow us to do that, because if you don't, you're taking a risk of frustration and a possible breakdown of your vehicle, or even worse. So trust the people who've been doing this for a long time. And the guys at the parts stores, a lot of them have an ASE patch.
You bet.
It's the Automotive Service Excellence patch. You know what they're certified in? Parts sales.
Yeah.
They're salespeople.
That's
Okay,
right.
they've been certified. They can sell parts.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that they know anything about the parts they're selling necessarily.
That's absolutely the truth.
We got to wrap this thing up here, guys. It's been a great segment, and I really, really enjoyed this. And hopefully we've given our listeners a lot of good information on parts. And a couple of things that I just want to finally say is that Glenn, you'd mentioned that a lot of these parts stores have been bought out by big hedge funds and investment firms, and we know in our industry that's happening throughout the valley. In the last few years, we've seen a lot of our
Little guys are getting swallowed up by the big ones.
Even manufacturing companies. I mean,
bet.
Stellaris is one of the biggest. They are the biggest car manufacturer owner, and they own like 30 different brands.
Right.
Well, and I guess to my point is that the thing of it is family owned and operated is getting less and less every year. So what I'm saying is that the bottom line is that if you're out there looking for a quality shop, and we want to do the best thing for your vehicle, we want to make sure we be your best advocate, like Lee said. And we want to give you the most cost-effective miles from your vehicle as possible. And when you have a problem or there is an issue, the owners, they're around.
Yeah.
And they're there to answer, help, fix whatever the issue is to keep you moving forward.
To really oversee. And amen, Dave. I mean, I really appreciate that comment, because it's absolutely the truth. The family owned really is kind of a badge of honor. It means something.
It does.
And I will tell you what, those are the champions that are going to really fight, you know what I mean, for our people. Because
You'll never find an owner in a national shop.
There
ever.
you go.
Well,
There you go.
We're part.
Ever.
We're
Never,
part of,
ever.
We're part
It's
of
just
the
a guy who
community.
is working for a living, making as much money
It's
as
the
he can.
unicorn, I would say.
Yeah.
And the best part about it, Lee and Glenn, is we're all part of our community.
You
And
bet.
we all give back. We all want to be part of our community. We're part of our churches. We're part of our charities. We're part of the neighborhood businesses. We support them all, and we want to continue to do that. But we want them to support us too.
Right. Well, and you know what? It's just about being fair and equitable, because the one thing is we still love what we do.
Yeah.
Guys, you
Yeah.
know what? I watch how you guys work. I've seen it. And I mean, we call each other all the time, not
Yeah.
just on the podcast.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is we still love what we do because it moves us. You know what I mean? And we're not just looking for the dollars. We're
We're looking to keep that passion going,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
We got families. We got families, and we want our families to be happy, and we want your family to be happy too. So,
Very good.
hey guys, it's been another great podcast, and it's always great to hang out with you guys.
I think it's just a great discussion. You
It
know what? I
is.
really, really appreciate hanging out with you guys, and I appreciate it.
Well,
Ditto.
everybody,
Have a great day, everybody.
everybody out there
Be good.
listening, we hope you got some good information. Talk to you later.